We're going to start a new series, if you want to call it. Today's just going to be kind of an introduction to it, but it's going to be called Essentials for the Last Days. And Joseph, go to the next slide, if you would please. And we're going to do it in three parts. We're going to do it how to be spiritually prepared. The second part will be being emotionally and mentally prepared. And then finally, the third part will be being physically prepared. There's a lot of authors that have written books in the last couple, 2 or 3 years, kind of on this same type of subject. And I've read several of them, and I all think that they maybe are a little lacking in one area or the other. So we're going to try to all get together on this, and I want you all to participate in it, as we go through it. But, I think the first and foremost thing is we need to be spiritually prepared. And just for the reason that really, if you're not spiritually prepared for what's happening, the other two things are really a moot point. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. We've got a short video for you this morning, and it's going to cover a lot of the things that have happened in the last week. As always, here lately, it seems that each week unfolds new and horrific things, lots of changes taking place. Again, I know I stress this probably every Sunday, but things are moving so quickly, so fast. Joseph? A lot of this stuff that we've already talked about, and we're going to touch on a few of these things as we go through this. But I think going forward, I think it's very essential for us to start talking about things like discernment, endurance, patience, being of a sound mind. We're going to cover all those things as we go through how to be spiritually prepared, and of course mentally prepared, and emotionally prepared, and then finally physically prepared. Things that some of us may or may not have thought about. And like I said, I invite everybody to participate in this as we go through it. Any thoughts or questions before we kind of dive into some of these topics? Anybody? At the very end of the video, the last scene was talking about this new controversial AI app that allows you to text with Jesus and Satan. This article is by Kurt Knutson. It was in Fox News. It's dated August 23rd. And the article was labeled Deepening Faith Through Texting with Jesus. Welcome to the world of Text with Jesus, where you're just a tap away from a conversation with the holy, and for a price, the not so holy. For those longing for a more personal connection to their faith, this app might be the digital salvation they're seeking. Designed with devoted Christians in mind, Text with Jesus promises interaction with figures like Jesus, Mary, Joseph, Peter, and Matthew. Um, we've already talked about how they're using AI, that they rewrote the creation story, and they're working on rewriting the entire Bible. All this stuff on the surface may seem okay, but I think anytime that we get away from the original word, um, we're in real danger of being influenced by other sources. What do y'all think? What do y'all think about this text with Jesus? Kind of crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But we live in such a technical world that there are going to be a lot of people they engage in this. They really are. There's going to be a lot of the younger people will engage in this. And I think that goes to probably one of the biggest things that we'll talk about is knowing the Word and studying the Word and being in the Word as we go into this new series. Of course, this is nothing new. Major supply chain issues are starting to develop all over the country. And this article is by Michael Snyder, and it was in the Economic Collapse blog from August 24th, 2023. It says more than 4/5, 82% of brick and mortar shoppers say that they're experiencing items being out of stock this year. According to new research data from the software provider's Retail Insight, finds this headline figure is up 11 percentage points year on year, and says supply chain disruptions causing it are now seriously threatening customer loyalty. I can't talk this morning. The findings are based on a survey of 1,000 people, and found shoppers believe that product availability has become increasingly a problem since the onset of the pandemic, as reported by 71% of respondents. An additional three-quarters, 75%, said product availability has worsened since the start of the cost of living crisis. This stuff being out of stock, we saw that during the pandemic. You couldn't buy toilet paper. There were other things that you couldn't buy. We're starting to see this all again, and it's starting to get worse. I've experienced a lot of it with work as far as getting parts to fix different types of printers, different types of machines. Fuji has increasingly started using refurbished parts, which our success rate with those is dismal. Actually, about 25% of the time you get a part that actually works. Most of the time it's something you have to pronounce it DOA, dead on arrival, and send it back and get another part. But this is something that's increasing, and I think that it's something that we all need to be aware of. If you've not started to physically prepare, I believe that you're running out of time. If you're not putting back some things that you need, just basic things, we're going to see costs go up, and things are going to be harder and harder to get. This was an interesting article that I ran across this week. The Biden administration considering new tariffs that will hike prices for canned goods. The Commerce Department and the International Trade Commission are considering a petition that would impose tariffs of up to 300% on tin plate steel, tin cans, of up to 300%. Can you imagine, we're already suffering from high prices at the grocery stores. Now they're going to put a 300% tariff on tin cans. That's going to take your bottom end of food, your True Value brand and whatever, and drastically raise the price of it. Again, if you're not preparing, I think the window is it's going to get harder and harder to prepare because things are going to go higher and higher up in cost. A lot of these articles I've posted on that Berean Preparedness on GroupMe, just the articles. So if you want to go back and look some of these articles up later and read the entire articles, feel free to do so. Get ready. Restaurants, ballparks, stores, all gearing up to digitalize their customers. Taco Bell and several other popular fast food chains say they are angling to becoming digital only, totally cashless businesses in the near future. During an earnings call earlier this month, Fox 8 in Cleveland reported that Taco Bell's parent company, Yum Brands, addressed a plan to eventually move to 100% digital sales at all of its restaurants. This includes fast food chains Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, and the Habit Burger Grill. Boy, I can't read this morning. Which also has units in China. Remember, it was KFC that offered to become the first restaurant to serve the fake lab-grown chicken. Um, we've talked about everything increasingly going digital, and we've talked about how eventually that would be tied in with the mark of the beast or the beast system. But we're not there yet, folks. But we're rapidly moving towards that. Next slide, Joseph. I took this picture this week. This was at Schnucks in Carbondale. Their checkout. 20 items or less, cashless U-Scan, electronic payments only, no cash accepted or distributed. It's everywhere, folks. It's coming. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with it and then what we're going to do. And that's hopefully some of the things that we're going to talk about in this new series. Amid healthcare militarization, new White House pandemic office. There's lots of talk of another pandemic. This happened earlier this month. This is dated August 22nd, 2023. The U.S. healthcare system, including a new permanent pandemic office at the White House, is being weaponized to bring the population under control, warned Citizens Council for Health Freedom, Chief Twyla Braze, in an interview on Conversations That Matter. Bureaucrats, the left, the Marxists, are hoping to use healthcare, fear, and pandemics to expand their power, she said. In addition, Braze explained why healthcare insurance premiums are rising as benefits decrease and what you can do about it. Lots of talk about this new COVID variant. Brown University, a lot of major universities have already jumped on the bandwagon implementing masks. Some are actually requiring vaccinations. Seems like all this stuff is spinning back up again. And it's something I think that we need to be prepared for this time.
We were in Paducah this past week, and people were already masking up, going into stores.
I noticed a lot of that this week also, Joseph, out and about, different places, especially up in Illinois. Lots of people were masked up. Lots of people wearing masks. God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of sound mind. So we need to. It's going to be difficult to talk about some of these things, but I want you all to engage in it, and we need to talk about it and try to get through all this. Brother Guy was talking about this morning, apostasy, and people falling away. This survey came out this week, August 22nd. Survey, Prosperity Gospel Beliefs on the Rise Among Churchgoers. According to a study from Lifeway Research, 52% of American Protestant churchgoers say that their church teaches God will bless them if they give more money to the church and charities, with 24% strongly agreeing. This is up from 38% of churchgoers who agreed in 2017 Lifeway Research study. Additionally, churchgoers are more likely today than in 2017 to believe that God wants them to prosper financially, 76% versus 69%, and that they have to do something for God in order to receive material blessings from Him, 45% versus 26%. Today, 3 in 4 churchgoers, 76%, believe God wants them to prosper financially, including 43% who strongly agree. Fewer, 45%, believe that they have to do something for Him in order to receive material blessings from God, with 21% strongly agreeing. We're seeing a rise in all of this stuff, the prosperity gospel, the woke movements within the church. Um, Apostasy seems to be running rampant. People seem to be falling away left and right. Another reason that we need to stay firmly rooted in the Word.
How can true Christians even believe it? There's another joke back in the day. Send us $29.95 and we'll send you a touch from God.
But people have, it's easy, Joseph. I think that's one of the biggest lures. It doesn't require anything on your part other than you reaching in your wallet and handing out some money. It doesn't require you to go to church. It doesn't require you to be involved in spreading the gospel. It doesn't involve you in doing the things that God dictates that we need to do as followers of Him.
But based on that and going digital, what are we going to have to put our credit cards in the collection plate every week?
Well, that's a good question.
That's already a thing.
Yeah.
Really?
There are churches that have the ATMs or card swipes
Or they
in
just
their
scan something
vestibule.
that they, in fact, someone I work with goes to church in Mayfield, and she said she gets her receipt by email before she gets home from church. And she's
Really, I didn't know that was I honestly didn't know that was a thing. I didn't. You know, talking about sacrifice and what you brought up, Joseph, I was listening to a podcast this week, and the preacher, I can't remember who it was now, he was talking about tribulation and us going through tribulation and going through hard times. And
Henry.
was it?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm still looking for the verse in the Bible that says when I become a Christian or a follower of Jesus, that my life is going to be a bed of roses. And him and me both. I've yet to find it, but we find scriptures like this that says, "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." We're going to have to go through some hard times, folks. We might as well get our minds set that we're going to have to go through some of this. I don't believe that we'll go through the Great Tribulation, but from this point on, and it's been this way for the last 3 years, it's been a slow, gradual move, but we can see things increasingly getting worse and worse. The darkness outside the church, outside into the world, has just gotten worse and worse and worse. And the Bible dictates that it's going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. And we need to be braced for all this stuff. Of course, in 2 Timothy, we've quoted this verse a lot, 2 Timothy 3:1. But know this, that in the last days, perilous times will come. And that word perilous means hard, grinding, excruciating. These times are going to be difficult on us. Next slide, Joseph. Now this is a little disconcerting also. And this was touched on in that little short video that we watched. These 14 American cities plan to ban meat, dairy, and private vehicles by 2030. Is yours on the list? By the year 2030, the following 14 cities in the United States are planning to completely outlaw all meat and dairy consumption, as well as private vehicle ownership and use, in order to conform to the green climate standards of the so-called C40 City Climate Leadership Group. This has been going on in Europe for quite some time, and we've talked about some of these cities in Europe, these 15-minute cities, and some of the things that they've been doing over there. But, it's now, they're talking about it here in the United States. And these are the cities: Austin, Texas; Boston, Massachusetts; Chicago, Illinois; Houston, Texas; Los Angeles, California; Miami, Florida; New Orleans, Louisiana; New York City; Philadelphia; Phoenix; Portland; San Francisco; Washington, D.C., and Seattle, Washington. The article goes on and says all 14 of these cities are part of the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, which has an ambitious target of achieving zero meat consumption, zero dairy consumption, only 3 new clothing items per person per year, 0 private vehicles owned, and only one short haul return flight less than 1,500 kilometers every 3 years per person.
All the women are moving out.
Yeah, I thought that would, yeah, 3 new clothing items per person per year. Um, Boy, I don't know whether that I need to buy socks or shirts or what. Isn't that crazy? Is it not just insanity, folks? You know,
There's an island in Greece that already has banned vehicles except for emergency ambulance, fire trucks, and police.
mhm,
No vehicles allowed in the country.
wow. But it's. I don't even have words for this. You know, it's insanity, is it not? Does anybody think that this is a great idea? um, we see these 15-minute cities popping up all over the world. They're starting to be built. And pardon?
Pretty much everywhere that there's a Dollar General.
Yeah. it That the article, if you remember back in our little video, there was a caption with the Ford CEO took his electric truck on a. Did anybody read the article or has heard about that in the news? He got in he one of their brand new electric Ford F-150s, and he's going to take it on this trip. And I forget, he left somewhere he picked the truck up in Canada, and he come across Canada into the United States and whatnot, and it showed his trip where he had to stop to charge his truck. So he stops the first time and he charges it, and he drives and he stops again. The third time he stops, all the charging stations where he stopped in the town that he stopped in was not working. None of them. So he actually had to take his electric truck to the Ford dealership and get a gas truck and finish his trip. And this is the CEO of Ford. You know, some of these people that have been promoting all these electric vehicles and all this stuff. You know, the infrastructure is just not there yet for it, folks. But this, you know, it's amazing to me that this shows how fast we're approaching all this stuff, and how everybody seems to be in the government seems to be on board for all this stuff, how it's just being forced upon us so quickly. There's been a lot of talk in Israel about a peace treaty with Saudi Arabia in the last 2 weeks. And our scripture up there is from Daniel 9:27, and it says, "Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week." Now we're talking about the Antichrist there. And Daniel gives us an outline in 9:27 of what the last 7 years are going to be like, as far as the Antichrist will come to power by signing this treaty with many for 1 week. And it'll be a treaty between Israel and their surrounding neighbors. And then, of course, in the halfway point, he will defile the temple, the rebuilt temple. And then, of course, we know what happens at the end of the tribulation, that he gets thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone. But in the Times of Israel this week, there are several articles, and we're going to go through them. It looks like we could be getting really close to a treaty between Israel and Saudi Arabia. You know that there has been talks due to the Abraham Accords that Trump did 3 years ago, but they've not actually firmed up an actual peace and an actual treaty, but they've been talking for the last 3 years. But it looks like we're getting really close to maybe a possible treaty between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Times of Israel. Foreign Minister Cohen to Arabic outlet. Israel will make gestures to Palestinians for Saudi deal. Israel is willing to make some concessions to the Palestinians to make this deal happen. Another article in the Times of Israel says, any deal must be done before Biden leaves office. Israel reportedly tells Saudis they believe that this is going to have to happen before President Biden leaves office, which obviously doesn't give a lot of time. Another article in the Times of Israel says, leading Saudi columnist says it is highly likely peace with Israel is possible. The Wall Street Journal also had an article on that this week, and it said Saudis agree with the U.S. on path to normalize kingdom ties with Israel. Subtitles: officials are negotiating details of agreement that they hope to submit within 9 to 12 months, though obstacles remain. Um, when the question is this treaty the same treaty that Daniel's talking about? Or is the treaty that the Antichrist will implement going to be a broader treaty? I think it's a wake up call. I think it's showing us how short time really could be. We know that when the Antichrist signs this treaty with Israel and its surrounding neighbors, that will be the start of the tribulation period. That's something that, I really don't get all upset about all this stuff that's going on in the world. I don't panic over this stuff. I know that God's in control, God's in charge, and really He has given us more information. You've got better information than the NSA, the CIA, the KGB. You really do, on the times that we're living in right here. God has laid out everything that's going to happen and is happening and is going to happen. We know how it ends. We know that we win in the end. But we have better intelligence than all the intelligence agencies. We really do. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen exactly the way God laid it out. And I hope that you all can see that from all the talking that we've done about the rebirth of the nation of Israel and how the Bible laid out thousands of years in advance how the nation would be regathered and the conditions and all that stuff. And as we studied that stuff over the last year and a half, I hope that you all could see how it was done just exactly like the Bible laid it out. Where people thought, when I first started studying this stuff 3 years ago, I read a lot of commentaries from the 1800s, and the theologians just could not understand how Israel would ever be a nation again. These great theologians that did such great work and had such great understanding of the Bible, they fell short in believing what God's word said. They just couldn't get it in their mind how Israel could be regathered after being scattered for thousands of years, and after the Holocaust and all this, people just didn't understand how it would even be possible. And then all of a sudden we watch God do all this stuff in the background. And we talked about how Jewish farmers, y'all remember that story, how the Jewish farmers came back into the land in the late 1800s, early 1900s, so the mountains would bloom, and how Ezekiel prophesied that thousands of years that the mountains would bloom before the people came back. And now we're at the point where we see Israel as this great, amazing nation, 8th strongest nation in the world, militarily, financially, and really the end times is all about the nation of Israel. And it's just amazing. It really is. Any thoughts or questions on anything before we wrap it up? We'll start this new series next Sunday, Essentials for the Last Days, and we'll start off with being spiritually prepared, and then we'll go on to the other two topics.